Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary. Hey guys, we're here today with Penny Morozow. How are you?
Thank God. Well, how about yourself, Esty?
Great, I'm so glad to be here. I know you have a lot to say about relationships. Do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, relationships is a very interesting conversation. I mean, I've done a variety of different things throughout my life, besides being married for many years and then driving Uber. I've almost 3,000 trips driving Uber, and I've had many, many, many conversations in the line of relationships. When it comes to relationships, most people never do the most important thing,
Which
which is
is?
finding themselves, right? Self-awareness. Most people go through relationships, they go through an entire life and never really find themselves. Now, that concept of finding themselves doesn't just apply to relationships, it applies to everything in life. Yes, relationships with finding a spouse, or that right long-term partner. Also, relationships with finding the right job, finding the right opportunity. It's the same thing. Most people don't realize that the same thing applies throughout life, right? So, you ask me about relationships. Well, there's so many aspects about relationships that can be discussed. Let's start from the beginning. The real question that needs to be asked, and most people do not ask, is what is important to you as a person? Have you ever asked that question, Esty?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's important to you as a person is vital, right? If for one person it's stability, having a stable job, even though to me a job may not be stable, most people think of it as a stability. And if that's what's going to bring somebody comfort, then that's what needs to be had. Versus others, being an entrepreneur, growing, that's the stability to them, okay? So most people never find that self-awareness. To find that self-awareness is a dynamic that most people have no understanding how to do. But we're going to try to cover all these aspects today so that most people can learn from this session and move forward. Let's review the three stages in building a relationship. The first stage is self-awareness, knowing who you are and where you want to go in life. The second stage is what you want in a partner. Now, when I say what you want in a partner, it doesn't mean all the nitty-gritty. Importance is not the nitty-gritty of what does my partner do, how does she respond. It's more a matter of mindset, a matter of which direction she's heading. So it's more the mindset than what she does. And then the most common thing that people, or most common misconception that people say, it's not really a misconception, it's a fact, but it's not the primary factor, is that people say that communication is key. Communication is key, but only after you've covered stage one and stage two of where you are, what you want to do, self-awareness, and knowing who you're going out with, knowing the mindset of the other person, right? Because if you're going to have communication, but you don't hit the first two stages, you're just communicating something that is pointless because at the end of the day, you're just not going to be growing together. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
So you've asked on this phenomenal subject of awareness, and most people have to take a step back, and sometimes it just takes meditating. It just takes sitting down, relaxing. I mean, there is. Yeah, I work with the genie, my life coach, or also known as Inner Access, actually Superwoman. Kara is my personal life coach, and we go over the power tools, the most important factors to do every single morning. And most people never ever do these things, but this is something that helps a person become self-aware, helps a person clear oneself. And these power tools include affirmations, providing affirmation to yourself and putting together 10, 20, 10 to 15 affirmations that you're going to say every morning, saying that, listen, I'm great at what I do, I'm the best at what I do, and I can succeed. Things that tell you what you want to be, and kind of mold your mindset to what you say, because you are as strong as your belief. You're as strong as the empowerment you give yourself, and anybody can do anything in their own life as long as they believe it enough, right? The second one is morning pages. It's kind of an ability to clear your mind and to just lay out 3 pages or however many. 1 page is fine. 3 pages is the goal of just writing 3 pages and laying it out there, getting what's in your mind out. And then you have meditation. Just sitting there, meditate, and taking 15 minutes meditating and letting your mind kind of calm, relax, and just take its natural course. And then you have visualization, visualizing where you want to be, visualizing where you're going, right? So these things help a person to really become self-aware and ground themselves with stability, right? With who they are as a human being. This would help a person naturally come to the understanding of who they are and self-awareness. Then step 2, you just have to take some time and think about it, what you want to do. But remember, step 2 is not really, I talk to people about putting together criteria for what they want in a spouse and what they want in a life partner. It's not about what they really want in a life partner. It's about really finding the criteria is really questioning yourself, who you are, and putting that down onto paper. Even if you never show it to anybody, it gets you to have clarity. When I'm divorced. Okay, I'm happily divorced because we just weren't the right people for each other. But then when I went down and I put together my own criteria, literally within a month or two, I found a girl that I feel is the right person for me. And that only happened because I sat down and put together this criteria of who I am, and really understanding myself. And I was creating this criteria and I made changes. Literally, better and better options came to fruition because I told the world what I wanted and the world gave it back to me. And most people just never go through that process of telling the world, this is what I want. All you got to do is tell the world what you want and the world will give it back to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And it's not about who do I want, it's about finding a match to yourself. Okay. And then you have the step 3 of communication, which is an ongoing process. Some people are good at communication, some people aren't. But if one works on oneself, one gets better, right? And that's really the 3 stages of finding clarity, finding the right person for yourself.
Do you want to go through them more in depth now?
Let me take a step back now and discuss overall, relationships, discuss a variety of different things. First of all, find the right match. So we've discussed these 3 stages. Now let's talk about importance of actually being a match. Okay. Obviously, there are many books out there. There's Laura Doyle's books, The Empowered Wife and The Submissive Single. I know a lot of people hate the word submissive. Laura Doyle's explanation, I know this is not really for men to listen to. Yes, I'm a man and I read the book. I'm sorry, Laura, but Laura Doyle's clarity of submissive means that the woman is submissive to the guy being the way he is and not expecting him to change. And that's a very important factor in life. Don't expect the other person to change for you. Now, they can change for themselves because they want to grow, but that cannot be a factor in the relationship, okay? They have to be wanting to change on their own, not related to you, right? So Laura Doyle's explanation of submissive is, I am submitting to the fact that this is the way they are. And either they are right for me or they're not. And if they're not, let's move on. That is a very important factor in relationships. Now, what is important in a relationship? There are 3 most important factors. Besides this factor that you have to be submissive to the fact that they are who they are, there is 3 important factors in a relationship that are a must to be had to really connect and not break up down the line. Okay. The first one is financial mindset. Many people have different concept of what it means to be financially mindset. My financial mindset may be I want to become financially free. Others mean that I have a 9-to-5 job. Others mean this is what type of money I spend. This is what type of money I save. Is a saving mindset, spending money, and more than 50% of breakups is because of financial aspects. So this is a primary necessity to match. So financial mindset being on same like mind. Second one is appreciating how a person presents themselves. Doesn't just mean dressing. It means how they talk, walk, and all the aspects in life. I spoke to a girl the other week and she's like, I'm going out with this guy. This guy is great, but she didn't know what it was. And then in conversation, she came to realize that She just didn't appreciate the way he walks, and she was embarrassed to deal with him because of the way he looked. And if that is an embarrassment to you, you'll never end up getting married, or if you do, you'll always be embarrassed and you'll end up wanting to get divorced. So don't allow it to happen to begin with, because that is a very important factor. You have to appreciate how they present themselves. Whatever is appreciated to you. You know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I've been on Facebook groups. I've been on a variety of different places, and I've come to realize some people like big, some people like skinny. You know, a lot of people say, well, I'm going to change this because, you know, I want to be more attractive. And that's not a true aspect in life. Okay. There are different people for different folks. Everybody has somebody who likes them for who they are. You just have to put out to the world that that's what I want. I want the person that's going to appreciate me for who I am. And most people never just want to change. It's a challenge. So yes, you have to present yourself. You have to appreciate you for who you are. Doesn't mean that you can't go ahead and change. But if you do change, you have to change for yourself, not to be able to find somebody else. Make sense?
Right. Yep.
Factor number 3 is that the other person has to have a life skill that you find attractive, right? Very important to find that life skill. That's whatever that may be, whether it's the fact that the person cleans, whether the person brings you presents, or something that is a life skill that you really find attractive and you appreciate, and something that stands out about the person that'll give you ongoing appreciation for them being who they are.
Why is that extremely important?
What happens without a life skill is nothing stands out. You're going to go down life and say, well, what makes this person for me? Why do I want that? You're going to go on in life, and then you're just going to lose interest in the person. Where a life skill, something that really stands out the person, is going to strengthen your appreciation for them. And remember, we're talking about their natural self. We're talking about something that's naturally inclined to them as to who they are, that you really brings appreciation of you for them. And because of that, you will continue increasing your appreciation for them. Life has changed tremendously back when 100, 200, 300 years ago. Hundreds of years ago, people got married, you know, they came home, they had cooked the dinner, okay, they had sex, that was it. And they didn't care about the fact that they left and they came home, she was there. That's all they mattered. And that was fine. Nowadays, we're in a lifetime where everything is continuously changing. Women go out to work. The whole mindset is different, where you really have to have appreciation for each other. And, you know, it's not like she's sitting home and just working endlessly and not thinking about life. You're both out there working like dogs,
Right.
okay, just to pay the bills sometimes. Or even if you're free, you're out and about, you're doing things, and you have to really have a connection to keep yourself within one each other and not lose focus. In which case, you know, the love has to be much stronger. People look at videos and whatnot and say, okay, there is love out there that's, you know, not true. You know, love is I see this all in videos. It doesn't exist. It's not real life. I'm sorry, it is real life. Yes, they may portray certain things that are just crazy, but realistically speaking, true love exists if you allow it into your heart, if you tell the world you want it, and you focus on the criteria. Now, what does true love really mean? I know a lot of people tell me, you know, my concept of relationship doesn't exist and all that. I found it. Not to say that I'm settled, but I've come to appreciate what true love really is. And when you have it, you can't go back to something else. Okay.
Right.
And factor exists as long as you're able to open your heart and let it in and come to recognize you can have everything you want. This is a very important factor in life that you have to appreciate. Let's take a step back. If you're going to build your criteria, you can't say, well, I want this, that, you know, and be specific to the point of, I want somebody with brown hair and nothing else. Unless that's what's attracting you, fine. But is that a criteria aspect? I've told people when you know, dating and whatnot, I'm like, I want a 10 out of 10. Okay. I went on a couple dates. One person was a 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever that aspect was in my mind, right? And most people said, you're crazy, you want 10 out. And my response is, yes, I want 10 out of 10 because I'm only looking at criteria. If you're going to look at all the flaws and say, well, I don't want anybody with flaws, well, that's where you're challenged. Okay? Now, once again, you could be very specific, but specific on criteria, you know, on mindset, on what I want in a person's mind, not on exactly, oh, I want this person to be a psychologist, or, you know, okay, that's nice and dandy. You want that, that could be a criteria of you, but there's only how much you can put in criteria. So yes, many aspects will have flaws. flaws and things like that. The person will have all this. I'll read you what I've written in regards to relationships as to what a true spouse should be. And this is, to me, an important factor. Many other people may not say this aspect. This is what I've written, okay? We just need to find someone who can be our best friend, someone we can be ourselves with, someone who can understand our crazy and kinkiness and will still accept us and possibly even play along. One who will love us for us and encourage us to be the best person we can be. We need that one who will help us reach our potential and stand by through thick and thin. Now, that special someone may also have just as many flaws as us, but that is the beauty of being able to be oneself with each other. Our flaws bring out the best of each other. Remember, you're talking about finding somebody who's going to be happy through the ups and downs of each other. You're both working towards a common goal. These are important aspects that most people never appreciate. Yes, some people argue that you shouldn't be talking about everything with your spouse. You should find, and yes, Laura Doyle in her books also go through this. A girl should find other girlfriends to talk. A guy should find other guys to talk about. You don't need to talk about everything, but you should be able to be open and honest. Different people have different types of relationships, fine, but you should have a connection that is so strong that holds you together through thick and thin, right? So we've gone through those three aspects of relationships, and we've gone through the criteria of training yourself, of finding yourself and finding what you want before you get to building communication, which is key, right? Make sense? Yes.
Yes, it does. Do you want to give us a specific example of what a person could find in themselves so that is how they know what they'll want in someone else?
Sure. Okay. So there are different types of people. There is intellectual type of person. There's a person that's more relaxed. There's a person that's a workaholic. So let's take intellectual, for example. If you're an intellectual, you want somebody who you can have a conversation with, somebody who can be intellectually minded in that conversation. So that's something that is important. That can be a criteria. If you want to be financially free, you want somebody in that same financial mindset, right? So we spoke about financial free, the same thing. If you like dressing nice and you like high-end stuff, well, you want somebody that's also going to appreciate high-end stuff. Now, it may be important for you to have, but you may not have an importance of the other person appreciating it. Well, as you think about it, it'll come to fruition because you're thinking about yourself and what's important to you. And then you realize, well, this is not something that's important to me, even though I like dressing nicely, I don't care about it. Well, then that's fine. But the only way you'll recognize that is if you first think about me. I'm a teacher. Right? I'm not a teacher, but if the person says, well, I'm a teacher, maybe I teach this subject a lot. I'm a teacher, right? And then, well, it's important that the other person be a teacher. Well, then that's something you'll recognize, or you may recognize, well, it's not important. It's important for me to do the teaching, but I don't care if the other person is a teacher or not. But the only way you're going to recognize that is you first think about yourself and where you are.
Right.
All right.
You are very self-aware.
Yes.
Right? Have you always been?
I didn't start off as much self-aware as I am now, and I definitely wasn't. If I was, I wouldn't have gotten married the first time the way I did. She's a great girl, but I wasn't self-aware. If self-awareness was not the issue, we would have never gotten divorced. It's because self-awareness was the issue, because I wasn't self-aware of who I am. That's why I became self-aware and realized, well, this is not working, and I'm not happy, and I have to make changes in life. Now, let's take a step back. If there's certain things like abuse or something like that, you always separate from a partner. There's no question asked, okay? But becoming self-aware is step one. Now, there are other issues when it comes to relationships. We're talking about relationships here. And just because a person starts becoming self-aware, and there's two different aspects, two different ways to looking at relationships. Number one is the person is trying to find who they are to trying to find the right spouse, right? Another aspect is they're married, now what? Just because people are going to say, okay, so I do self-awareness. I've done everything that you said until now. Therefore, I'm going to find the right person. I'm going to have communication. I'm going to be good, right, for life. That's not true. A true relationship is an ongoing work. There is a great book, Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, okay? Now that you've built your understanding of each other, you now have to recognize, okay, am I the right person for each other? But can I communicate properly? Can I show my love to the other person? Well, you may show your love in the way you appreciate. Can that love be understood by the other person? Well, the 5 love languages goes through what it is that each person appreciates and understanding that, right? And actually be able to providing it. You've now gotten into a workload that's a lifetime skill. Yes, some people have it easier than others, but you have to appreciate it from the other person's perspective and their understanding of, do I love them? The way they're looking at, do you love me? And if your love language is gifts, but their love language is time, and you're giving gifts, that's not going to give them the result, the appreciation, and the feeling of love that they need to have, right?
Right.
So that's a work that never stops. Now, most people go through a relationship, and a lot of people connect right away and start with something called infatuation, which means they really love the other person, but it's not always the aspect of love. It's the fact that I want to have sex or I want to just do things with the other person, but it wears off because it's infatuation, meaning it's just that initial attraction without a solid foundation. So really an important aspect in building a relationship is that self-awareness we discussed. And sometimes dating is an aspect of creating that self-awareness to yourself. One of the things that a person will find once they become self-aware is that they can make a phone call and be on the phone for 5-10 minutes and say, oh, well, this girl's not for me. I would never go out on a date without having a phone call for 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, right? Most of the time, within 5 minutes, I know this girl's not for me. Case closed. And I'm appreciating that. I'm saying, okay, fine, that girl's not for me. And I've saved myself countless hours by simply knowing who I am, right? I've gone through that process. And my dating 5 girls or 10 girls is the same like other people dating 100, 200, or 300 people because I've become self-aware. I don't need to go through that process. Okay.
Right.
Now, you can still take a day, a night out and say, okay, I just want to go hang out, irrelevant to who it is. Different conversation, different aspect of life. Okay. You're going to do that. I won't get involved. Fine. But when you want to date in order to find the right girl or the right guy to marry, okay, or to be with, you need self-awareness so that you don't end up separating and all that. So taking that step to do the self-awareness helps you get through a lot of chit chat, a lot of wasted time or energy. And not only that, dating is really helping you find your self-awareness.
Right.
So as you go through, you correct your criteria, and then the world gives you what you want because you're telling the world what I want.
Exactly. The more specific you put out there, the more specific you'll get.
Correct, as long as you're focused on criteria, not all the bits and pieces, right?
So how does a person make sure they don't get caught up in the bits and pieces?
Well, the bits and pieces is the fact that I want this person to be, to do this one specific factor in life. It's not about getting caught up. It's about, once again, self-awareness to begin with. Perfectionist. I'm very much a perfectionist. As a perfectionist, I can literally sit on something for hours and hours and say, well, I want this to be perfect. You can do that, but you'll start recognizing that you're not getting results because you just don't finish the job. It's just, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing, period. Okay. A lot of people say if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. No, if it's worth doing and it's worth doing right, you'll never end, right? There's never a stop. Sit down, you get it done, you put down your timeline, and you say, okay, today I'm going to create my draft of my self-awareness. You put it down and then you move on. So it's not that you're not going to get caught up. These things are very important, but the importance is getting the job done and find the right girl that matches you, right? And then building a connection on there. Well, finding the right girl that matches you means drafting your criteria. Criteria will never end. A person who really wants to get on and grow in life recognizes that life growth never ends. Okay, but sitting down and writing it and spending, let's say, the next month putting together criteria is fine, right? Because you're taking a step back and you're creating criteria. When you get stuck in the details is when you don't put an end time to it. When you don't stop, that's when you get stuck with the details. You'll never stop your criteria, never stop appreciation. Just appreciate where you are as well. A lot of people live in the future, live in the past. I've done that. I've lived in the past, I've lived in the future, and living in the current is really where it's key, right? There is entrepreneurship, and there are people who just work for others. You're either going to work for your goals or for the goals of others, okay? And to work for your goals, you have to work for the current and the future. We learn from our past, we live in the current, and we visualize the future. And when you're visualizing the future, you'll get there, but live in the current. And that really gets a person to just appreciate. Sit down, you get up early and you work, but then you celebrate and you appreciate the fact that you accomplished this. Right. So you put down and you put your criteria out, appreciate, and just go out and say, okay, now I'm going to celebrate and I'm not telling you to do anything crazy, but just to go out for a night and appreciate appreciate what you've done for yourself
Yeah.
and kind of celebrate it. Whatever celebration means to you, something that you're going to appreciate and enjoy in life.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to tell us before we finish?
I can go on and on about these subjects. The most important factor is taking a step back, learning who you are, where you want to go on in life, and starting to appreciate the other person through being the right match for them, communication, and most importantly, because you've recognized who you are and you have clarity to yourself, you can identify within a short time, is this person a match or do I need to move on? And if you're in a relationship, you're struggling for whatever reason, still take a step back and recognize these things. I have a mentor, Barney Zick, real estate mentor, and he says, you're in a relationship, go for a drive for an hour each way. One way, one person asks questions, the other way, the other one asks questions. It'll build a relationship like never before, or it'll end it quicker, one way or the other. But at least you'll get to appreciate each other. And remember that even though I've laid out these factors for life, for understanding oneself and understanding life and how things are working, it's still important to recognize that infatuation exists. And sometimes you just have to take a step back and meditate and really make sure you're really understanding who you are, because infatuation is very short-lived unless it's balanced with real love. And then also understand the factor that there are times where maybe you should not be together with a person that you feel like going on because there's abuse or something like that, and that's never an answer. But otherwise, true love really exists as long as you're willing to do the work. Yet if you're not willing to do the work, don't expect it to be there.
Yep, that's right.
That's it. Just be happy, live in the present, focus on the future. Remember your past, but don't live in it. Be in the present and focus on the future.
Thank you so much. Thanks guys for listening. Leave a comment below, I'd love to know what you think. And to book a relationship photo shoot, CJE session, or just to find out about more what we do, go to lifepicksrelationships.as.me. I'm waiting to hear from you.